Welcome to the Wealthy Speaker Podcast. This is the podcast dedicated to people who want to speak more as a way to build their income and grow their business. Well, welcome everyone to the Wealthy Speaker Show. I'm your host, Jane Atkinson, and today I'm with my partner in crime, my sidekick, my Wealthy Speaker Community Manager, Jen McDonough. Welcome, Jen.
Hey, Jane. Thanks for having me on today.
Now, Jen, how long ago was it that you actually got started in this business?
Jane, you and I were just discussing this, and I looked over my shoulder to see that my first dollar is sitting on the shelf, and it says April 2013 was the first ever dollar made.
So first dollar roughly around 3 years ago, maybe started about 4 years ago. And so one of the great reasons why I love having you on so many of the things that I do is because you can say, well, when I got started, I did this and this and this, and you're really coming at it. I've had 25 years in this business, so sometimes I forget what it's like to be in the early stages, even though I am working with people, through the ready, aim, fire formula. So let's actually cover the ready, aim, fire formula first for our listeners. In the ready stage, this is all mapped out, by the way, in the Wealthy Speaker 2.0. In the ready stage, we're getting crystal clear on what we're selling, and we are developing some language. We call it a promise statement, and we'll get to that in a minute. We develop some marketing language around that clarity. So check, we've locked it in. Then we move into AIM, and that's where we actually apply our language to our marketing, and we really get to work on what we consider our first line of marketing offense, which is our website. And then and only then do we roll into fire, and that's where we roll it out to our target market. Jen, do you think anybody ever fires before they do ready and aim?
Probably about 92% of us do, perhaps.
92, that's a random number. Yes, I would say that I have certainly fired in just in rolling out a launch or a product or something like that. I have certainly fired before I took ready and aim into consideration. And so you have to back it up. Sometimes it costs you some money to fire prematurely, but we hope that people won't be doing that. So we've got 3 steps for people today in really getting started. So if you are an executive and you're thinking about leaving your job, or you'd like to know what your second or third act in your life is going to be, and you're thinking about speaking as a way to supplement your retirement, this is for you. If you are someone who is a coach, or maybe you have podcasts, or you're really doing other things out there and you think, oh, I'd really like to speak as a way to promote my other side of my business, this podcast is for you. If you are someone who wants to move into professional speaking, that's you just decided that this is going to be your next career, then this podcast is for you, because we're really just going to lay out all of the processes. And there's 3 things that I think people need to really take into consideration. One is to let me back it up. I said that out of order. 1 is to pick a lane. 2 is to establish a promise. Hopefully you have a notepad here and you're taking notes. And 3 is to create an awesome product, which is actually your speech. So pick a lane, establish a strong promise statement. We'll tell you about that, and create an awesome product, which is, of course, your speech. And I've always said that there's no better form of marketing than a really great presentation. There's a woman who is just absolutely beloved in our industry. It's early in the morning, so I really should have her name right on the top of my tongue, but it's not coming to me right now. I'll think of it maybe by the end of the story. She started out and she just decided she was going to do this business. And she started out and she booked a meeting room, and she invited everybody she knew, and I think she got a couple hundred people into the room. And she can attribute her entire 30-year of book of business about 80 to 90% from the people who were in that room that very first day. And I just think that that speaks volume to the idea that you need to create an awesome product. So we'll come to that one third. So let's back up and start with picking a lane. Jen, how important do you think it is to pick a lane?
I think it takes us from trying to boil that ocean, of what we really want to do, and really narrows it, helps put some guide rails on it so that we can boil that pot and boil it well.
Yeah, absolutely. So when you are known, and some of the people that will be coming to us into our world at the Wealthy Speaker University or at Speaker Launcher Coaching, they are kind of broad in what they're doing. They might have a long, long, long list of topics. The joke in our industry is that if your topic list is longer than your client list, you're in really big trouble. That's an old joke, so it's kind of corny, but anyway, it's true. And so our version, and of course there's always more than one way to do this business. We recognize that there are, for every idea we lay out, there's an opposite idea that also we know that people are out there doing it as well. But the reason why I think picking a lane is so important is so that you can actually develop a speech that is epic. When you're delivering 5, 10, 15, 20 different presentations, how can any one of them be epic? And some people have this just innate talent that everything they do is really gold. And that actually leads me to Patricia Fripp as an example. She was out delivering presentations. This was kind of back in the day when the professional speaking industry was quite different. And they would say, her clients would say, Patricia, book us for 14 months out on this date. We don't know what we're going to use you for yet, but we'll choose the topic later on. We just know we want you. Okay, great. She would do that. Well, this one situation, she came and spoke to a sales team. It was a sales team of a very, very high ticket process and item, something that there was a lot of money on the line, what these people were selling. And she gave them the presentation, and the leader of the organization said to her, "Oh my gosh, I love what you did. But more importantly, I love how you did it. Do you think you could come back and teach my people how to present the way that you do? We've got all this money on the line, and we really want to be able to close these sales." And so she realized that started happening to her in her career more and more often, where people would say presentation skills, presentation skills. And so she went from wide, where she was speaking on a whole host of topics, to narrow as an expert. And I can guarantee you that her fee and her expertise and being known for one thing in her industry just really elevated her in all parts of her life. And I'm quite sure that her programs got better too, because she was always speaking about the same thing. So her knowledge base and everything rose as a result of that. And anybody who wants to ask Patricia Fripp, I'm sure if you tweeted her or something, she would respond and tell you that that's probably true. So establishing a great So when you're picking a lane, one of the things that we want to do is we want to try to come to the place in the road where passion meets profit. Jen, you took a little bit of time to pick a lane. How did you kind of finally come to this road, and share with us what your lane is, because it's very specific?
Yeah, well, when I started out, Jane, I just knew that we wanted to share our story. We're known for paying off a ton of debt, but I didn't want to be known as a finance person. I've done an Ironman after being a couch potato, but I didn't want to be known as a fitness person. And so going back and really kind of figuring out what is it that I'm an expert in, but then also marrying that up with the audiences that I was really passionate about. And when you're new, you don't know who you're going to like. I knew I wanted 20 to 60-year-olds that were in crisis type things, and that's like most of Americans today.
Yeah.
They're in chaos, they've got stress. And so just going out and discovering locally what type of events were out there was really helpful. I was working full time. When I started, we were raising 4 kids. I'd just written 3 books in about a year, and we had a 2-hour daily commute. So time off of work was really a big issue for me at that time.
Mm-hmm.
And finding events locally was really a helpful thing, because then I could go speak, take a half a day off work or whatever that was. And through literally by accident, I found my first responders and fell in love with them, and realized that when I went back and made I call it a template of that audience, I realized that that's what I had been doing all my life. Is I had worked in medical, and when I listed out why I liked things about medical, the things about first responders were so similar. And so that was really helpful to see that template, because now when I go out and speak to audiences, it's very easy to see who's a good fit and who I want to serve. And doing that and seeing what they need and want really helped narrow that focus down to resiliency.
Right.
So I help grow resilient individuals and teams today.
Yeah, and we have we call you sometimes the Iron Gen, which really was a great fit, and it's because of that resolve and that resilience. And really, you came through our Wealthy Speaker University, and you had that resolve and that resilience to just make this happen for yourself. So I hope that Jen's story will inspire our Wealthy Speaker listeners that, you know what, you can start from ground zero and you can build your business. And picking a lane is a really important piece of that puzzle. So anything else about picking a lane, Jen, that you think we need to cover? I have a focus form in the Wealthy Speaker 2.0 that people can kind of work through. They list out all of their ideas, and then they rate them with a number on a scale of 1 to 10, based on certain criteria. Are you credible to deliver this topic? Is this a topic you're passionate about? Can you get paid for this topic? People might choose basket weaving for beginners, and I just don't know if people are going to pay what we'd like to see in terms of payments in our industry. And that may bring people to wonder, well, what can I get paid? And I've said in the book that $1,500 is kind of at the low end. It's the kind of starting point for what I would consider professional speaking. And so it's from $1,500 per speech on up to $25,000. I do have some clients that are charging $25K right now after only 5 years in the business. So that should give people some hope that there is a lot of possibility out there for them. Anything else that we haven't mentioned about picking a lane?
Just a couple things. Number one, I think that sometimes there's a fear of picking a lane, like you're going to be missing out on something or you're excluding people. But I would just really encourage people to look at it more as like a laser focus beam. When you have this beam and you spread it out among miles, you can't see it. But when you take that same beam and really become laser focused, it becomes very strong and powerful. So realize that it's a fear, but just to move through it for many of us. And also too, when you're standing on the outside and you're looking in and you're seeing people who are professional speakers, and you're like, hey, I could do that, but you're just feeling like, oh, I don't even know where to start. Having a program such as Jane's program is almost like taking us kind of across the monkey bars. It helps guide us. We know where the next rung is to go, and that is really helpful, because it can become overwhelming when you're on that outside and you're thinking, I think we all have this fear, Jane, that green gremlin lives, who is going to hire me? And once you get into that bubble and you get into your sweet spot, all of a sudden you start going from that scarcity mode to abundance mode of, oh my goodness, there is so much out there. And I think just the whole assurance that there is fertile fields out there. Yes, it is possible, and people are waiting to hear your message. But just remember that it's not always what people need that they're going to hire for. It's what people want. So learning to wrap that need around what they want is really helpful. So
Very, very good. So let's give a couple of questions that people can ask themselves. Is what problem do I know how to solve that people will pay to solve? What problem can I help solve? And then also combined with what do I want to be known for 5 years from now? And if you think about your topic that you're thinking about and you think, oh, no, I really don't want to be doing this for the next 5 years, well, then we're off to something else. You don't have the passion for that. And Jen, I really love the input that you're giving people for inspiration and the gremlin and the fear. I adopted this saying years ago. I think it was my old boss. His name was Peter Legg. I used to be an agent. How I got started in this business was I was an agent for several speakers over the course of 10 years. And Peter Legg was a publishing magnate and loved working for him out in Vancouver for a few years. And he gave me the phrase, decisions based in fear are typically wrong. And I have really tried to live by that. And if I feel myself getting, lured into fear with the gremlin on my shoulder, I have little things that we were taught in the coaching school. They're called structures that I kind of put in place. So whenever I get really nervous, I'll look over to my bulletin board and I have these letters that certain people who really meant a lot to me sent to me that just kind of make me remember, no, you've got the goods. Just remember that you do have your expertise to fall back on. And they reassure me when I start to get into fear. So ask yourself those two questions. What problem can I solve? And what do I want to be known for 5 years from now? And as Jen said in our programs, in our 16-week class, in our online course, you can certainly learn and takes you across the monkey bars. And what I like about the monkey bar analogy, Jen, is that there's not that far to fall. If you mess up, you kind of drop to the and then you get back up again. And it's not like you're going down into a deep crevice or something like that. Okay, so step number 2 is around establishing a promise statement. A promise statement is marketing language. It's like a tagline. And if you think about, we also have a brand. Some people will create a brand as well. But what I see missing most often in speakers' websites is their promise statement. Consider a brand being like a book title and a promise statement being like a subtitle. It's something that can stand alone a lot of times. So a promise statement, I'll give you a few examples. Turning managers into leaders, creating high stress, creating low stress, high energy workplaces. Creating high energy, low stress workplaces is probably how that one went. Mine is catapult your speaking business. So think about what you would like to say that would allow people to come onto your website, for instance, and boom, see within 10 seconds, 5 seconds even, how it is that you're going to help them solve a problem. So let's give you a few key ideas around promise statements. Number 1, we want to make it about them and not us. It's not necessarily about you coming and giving a speech, because a lot of times people are experts in, and speaking is just one of the ways that they kind of deliver their knowledge. And so when I come onto your website, I might see your promise statement, and then I might see several links of how you actually deliver on that promise. Maybe you're a consultant or a coach. Maybe you have a podcast. Maybe you deliver webinars. Maybe you're a trainer as well as a keynote speaker. All of those might be options. So what we're really talking about is your company as a whole and how it helps people. And so we want it to really not be necessarily about the speaking, but about the expertise that you're delivering. So we have a saying, expert first, speaker second, and that's why we do that. Now, some people, they may just be delivering speeches, and that's okay. I still think we're talking about the outcome of the speech in the promise statement. So number 1 is we want to make it about them. Number 2 is let's have this promise be short and sweet. So 5 to 7 words is often a good number for creating a succinct statement. Catapult your speaking business. That's 4 words. It's pretty tight. And then the last thing is to really swap out your kind of everyday words for more interesting or juicy words. And in the show notes, we will put some lists of, I have a little word finder that I use with people, and that might help you kind of look for more interesting language that you can use as a part of your promise statement. Jen, what else have we forgotten about promise statements?
Sometimes we can get lost in trying to read the label from the inside. Jean, you have taught me that. Seeing the label on the outside from someone else's perspective can be helpful. So sometimes going to people, if you're kind of stuck on this, and just asking them, hey, what are the outcomes of working with me? Tell me in 10 words or less. That can be a helpful way for us to see that. But also I would advise, if it takes you an hour to explain to someone what you do, getting help on this is really, it might save you a lot of frustration, because a lot of us are really creative and we can come up with these really cool things, but sometimes we can out-create ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
And it can make it so complicated that people don't understand.
Right. And that is, I think once we get this promise statement, you can tend to build it into the, hi, nice to meet you. What do you do? And your answer can be, well, I help professional speakers catapult their careers. Oh, how do you do that? Well, I do coaching and online courses, and I have a university and blah, 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 written a few books. So, imagine you are an expert on efficiency, getting things done. You might help people leverage their time and be more productive. Leverage your time is way more interesting than
get your mess cleaned up.
Yeah, get your mess cleaned up, or helping people be more efficient. You can kind of build some more interesting language into that. So be thinking about number 1, you're going to pick your lane, and really that's going to help you narrow this language to one thing. Then you're going to establish a promise statement, and kind of just come up with what you think is the language, and then go back and examine each word and see whether or not you can swap it out for a word that's a little bit juicier. So the next stage, Jen, is to really develop what we call an epic keynote. I have a book called The Epic Keynote, which is why that's the language we use, because there is no better form of marketing than a great speech. And that was the example that we came up with earlier. I'm thinking to myself, why can I still not remember the beautiful woman from Phoenix's name who told me that story? Sorry, audience. I will put it in the show notes if I can remember. It's going to come to me the minute we
you'll be sleeping tonight, and then it'll come, Jane.
She's right there. I can envision her. She's just this beautiful woman. So we do have a formula for creating an awesome presentation. This is laid out in the Epic Keynote book, and it's so easy. I'm sure we can complicate it up if we try, but what I encourage my clients to do is to develop a formula of 3. 3s work in comedy, 3s work in speaking, 3s work in a lot of different things. And so if you have 10 steps and you try to give your 10 steps over the course of a 60-minute presentation or a 45-minute presentation, I think you will find that people will feel full. They will, the thing that many people do in their presentations is they try to give too much. And so a keynote, for instance, the idea behind a keynote is to really just inspire thought. It's to be thought-provoking. And So be thinking about your 3-part formula. So my formula, which I shared with you at the beginning, is ready, aim, fire. It's the basis of everything I do. It's every speech is set up that way. Every coaching call is set up that way. Where are we in the ready, fire process? The books are written that way. It just gives you an ability to be focused and always know where to start. Brilliant. So the super simple speech keynote formula is we have an opening story, then we have your 3 points, and then we have your closing story. Ta-da! It can be more complicated if you want it to be, but I don't think it needs to be more complicated. Opening story and closing story is what a lot of people miss, and especially the closing. Even some of the pros. My client who's out there earning $25K a speech, he always has to work on his close. It's the thing that just kind of, sometimes the speech just goes wah, wah, wah at the end. And, it's been so good up until then that they don't care. However, we like to have an opening, your 3 key ideas, and then your closing. Sometimes you'll go outside of that formula. That's okay. This is just a guide for you to, give you a place to start. If something else works for you, if you have 4 things, or if you only have 1 idea, that is okay. Joe Calloway, one of my buddies from Nashville, gave what I would consider an epic keynote once to a group of professional speakers at a National Speakers Association conference. It was called Let It Go. And the premise was, what do we as speakers need to let go of in order to get to the next level in our career? And it was throughout the whole speech, there was just 1 point. Let it go. So one of the things we had to let go of is that he wasn't going to have 3 points. He only had 1 point. Right. It was let it go. He even left the stage before the speech was over. And on the slide, on the stage, on the PowerPoint, it said, here's Joe on picture Joe on an American Airlines plane flying out of Phoenix. He's not here for the ending. Let it go. And so let it go was teed up at the beginning. It was sprinkled throughout, and he drove it home at the end. And I loved that. It was one of the most epic presentations that I've ever seen. We actually diarize it in one of the products I have. It's called Diary of an Epic Keynote. So super simple speech formula. Jen, I know that you worked really hard to get your speech up and going, and you did several things. Tell us what some of the things that you did to create the epic keynote were.
Well, I've done a lot of athletics in my life. I was an Olympic-style weightlifter for 10 years, Hall of Fame person. So I know the value of having someone critique you is so painful, but so important. So I hire a presentation coach to come watch me live and also to work with me one-on-one. And I am tapping into her several times a year. And I don't know about you, Jane, but my talk never really feels like it's totally done. It's always refining. Yeah. And you know what? She gave me some great advice the last time I met with her. She said, stop changing it. You just tweak it and make it go from really, really good to awesome. And so that's my goal, the rest of this year is just to tweak and refine. But I think we can be our most harsh critics sometimes, but also we do need that reality to see if something is not working. And having her attend live is really a gift that she's local, because what she'll do is she'll watch not only me, but she watches the audience reaction. Nice. And the one I had her attend, I left the stage, Jane, and I said, man, that was a flat talk. Like that just wasn't, it just was one of those things that the organizers were really, really happy, but I knew in my heart that it was a flat talk. And she's like, Jen, that was outstanding. They were engaged and I'm like, yeah, but I hardly had anyone crying at the end, and and it was that type of audience, they were pretty tough nuts to crack, but
your bar was in the wrong place. In terms of lowering the bar, you had it so high for yourself that if they didn't cry, you decided it wasn't a good talk.
This is a failure, epic failure. But it's learning to meet people where they're at. And I
Yes.
think that's a gift to ourselves as speakers to it's not all about us, it's about them, and how can we meet them and take them forward. Some you're going to take forward by miles, and some it's by inches, and whatever it is, that's okay. Just bring them forward a little bit.
Yeah. Now, I know you also really enjoyed Judy Carter's Message of You. That was a great book that you really tapped into, and I've worked with Judy on a few things for her Message of You University. She's awesome. And also, one of the things that you really took to heart was the idea that humor was so, so important. What did you do to kind of figure out humor?
When I attended her 2-day conference, I read her books, I thought, I'm not funny. I'm not funny at all. But she took the most unfunniest person in the world and showed you how they can become funny. And so it was a nice assurance to go, oh, you don't have to be Jerry Seinfeld
Right.
to go up there. It is using your own natural gifts and strengths. And so really seeing other people helped me, Jane, to see what humor did. They can be the most knowledgeable, teach type person, but if you don't have stories and humor and making it about them,
Yeah.
people just, especially in our society today, they just don't have the attention span. And I know, sometimes that can the folks that I work with are dealing with very serious things, and they need that kind of break to be able to absorb and to they can relate to you. I love the assurance that it's not what you say, it's how you make people feel.
Mm-hmm.
And that is so important.
And I'm pretty sure that because it is who you are, Jen, that you just make your audience feel like you care about them. And I would suspect that you've taken some of our content about making the audience the heroes of your stories, and you've taken that to heart as well, and actually done your homework and found out who these people were and really brought them into your presentation. That's a really cool thing that no doubt you do. Humor, everybody has a different kind of way of getting humor across. Mine is kind of self-deprecating humor. I joke about how all of these people in the audience get paid to speak. And when we're on long car rides together, sometimes my husband offers me money to stop speaking.
That's awesome.
So I make jokes at my own expense. I don't care. I have no problem being the butt of other people's jokes either. And so I think that when you don't take yourself too seriously, people kind of get that. And really, when you go out to speak, before you go on stage, this is something we talk about a lot in the book, is having a mantra that you create, especially if you do get nervous. Take 10 really long, slow, deep breaths, because getting oxygen to the brain is what's going to keep you mentally sharp. And
I'll add one thing to that, Jane. I always look
yes.
for the exit, because I think any minute I can just run. I can do it.
I thought you were going to say because you're in a classroom full of first responders, you want to be able to tell them if something happens which way to go. But you're thinking about dodging.
Oh, I'm out of there. Plus, if I have a heart attack, I mean, what better place to be?
Exactly.
It's just awesome.
Well, I'm hoping that the people who are listening into this, I hope this one will go viral. I hope you'll share it with people who are really thinking about getting involved in the industry. I hope that we've given you 3, really, notice it was 3, pick a lane, establish a promise, and create an awesome product in your speech. I hope that those 3 key ideas will really, really help you get off the mark, get the courage to launch into this industry, and truly step into their wealthy speaker potential. Thank you for being here with me today, Jen. And for now, we will say, see you soon, wealthy speakers. Bye for now, everybody. Thanks for listening to the Wealthy Speakers Show. Please visit speakerlauncher.com for your free Wealthy Speaker audit, and visit speakerlauncher.com/podcast for show notes and many more resources to help you catapult your speaking business. See you soon, Wealthy Speakers.